Hey everybody, you're listening to my podcast Suchitra's Life. With me, Suchitra, your host, as usual. Um, I've been thinking a lot about money this year, not because I want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, but rather to understand how to save and save for long term. So I've come across an interesting book. It's called The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel. Housel. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but it's written by Morgan. And I had just completed reading it. I should say this book is uh, not totally about the technical aspects of making money, like which business do you need to start, which field would fetch you a lot of income, and it doesn't talk about a formula for an ROI on your investments in a particular period. It rather talks about uh, your behavior towards money. Like it's it's all right if you're smart when it comes to money, but he's saying being uh, your behavior is even more important than you being smart with your money. How you gonna behave with your money matters a lot, and this book totally delves into that. And since I'm from like a middle class background, um I could see that many things that he talked about were quite relatable for me, and uh, I would definitely suggest that other people read it as well. It's nothing technical, it's totally about your approach towards money that needs to change. So, here are some interesting snippets that I can talk about from this book. So, he says that financial success is not a hard science, it's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. And in this book, he used short stories, to convince that soft skills are more important than the technical side of the money, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading. So, the premise of this book is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. And behavior, according to him, is hard to teach even to really smart people. He says a genius who loses control of their emotions can be a financial disaster. The opposite is also true. Ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if they have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measure of intelligence. Um, and all the chapters that are laid out are, in a way, uh, talking about a particular situation that had happened. He's taking an example, and in one chapter, he's talking about the Great Depression that had happened and how we should not really take that as a reference point and make our financial decisions. And also, in one chapter, he talks about risk and luck. That chapter is something I particularly liked because he gave an example of Bill Gates and his friend who died while mountain climbing. Both were equally talented, equally skillful. It's just that one person is alive and the other one is not. So it's um, in a crude way, Morgan says that luck and risk have their place in our lives and it's important to acknowledge them. He says that if you give luck and risk the proper respect, you realize that when judging people's financial success, both your own and others, it's never as good or as bad as it seems. And he also, warns about being bold and reckless. So, all in all, it's an interesting book, and I've always been careful with money, I should say that. And whenever I would like spend too much, I don't know, somewhere my mind starts alerting me that, okay, I'm spending too much and this is uncalled for and it's not really how I would behave. So, yeah, whatever Morgan addresses was very, very relatable. And he also points out in one of the chapters that how people end up buying things just to impress others, you know, to make, I mean, let me quote this paragraph. To make money they didn't have and didn't need, they risked what they did have and did need. And that's foolish. It's just plain foolish. If you risk something that is important to you for something that is unimportant to you, it just does not make any sense. And this is about, people who take huge loans, who incur a lot of debts in order to buy you know, a Lamborghini. They think that people would think of them highly if they, ride in that particular car. But when people are looking at your car, they're only thinking about the car and they themselves are imagining it to drive it one day. And nobody in this process is necessarily thinking about you. And Morgan says this because he worked as valet, uh, parking other cars, and he realized that I'm just thinking about the cars, not totally about the people who are driving it. Social comparison is the problem, that gonna push you to spend more. The point is that the ceiling of social comparison is so high that virtually no one will ever hit it, which means it's a battle that can never be won, or that the only way to win is to not to fight and to accept that you might have enough and even if it's less than those around you. So this book is not like, okay, just a feel good self help kind of book. It's a very um, practical book. You know, I strongly recommend it because during the pandemic and whatnot that's happening right now, even the Russia and Ukraine war that's going on. Um, if we look at our economy, of course, it's getting affected, and you would be panicking and take a harsh decision to withdraw from your portfolio. But Morgan says that sticking to something for long term is always recommended. Rather than panicking and just withdrawing and then you know going about your life. It's always advised to stick to something in long term. And um, yeah, that's the reason why, though the economy is kind of low right now, I'm not really panicking because um, yeah, I can see now that I'm in for something long term, so I need not really panic, and things would again go back to what they were earlier. He says that a good definition of an investing genius is the man or woman who can do the average thing when all those around them are going crazy. which I totally agree. And he says that uh, with the help of money, uh, you will be having this ability to do what you want to do when you want to do with who you want for as long as you want, and it is priceless. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. I don't really have that freedom right now, but yeah, I think at one point in my life, I would like to, just wake up and say that. Um, so, all these things are possible with money, but he also warns that, if you look back at your life, you need not have any regrets that you chased money to such an extent that you couldn't make any good memories of your life. And I mean, he says that being extreme in any sense is not good, like being like extremely stingy and extremely you know spending extremely, both of it is, it's just not suggested. So we need to find a balance. It says that to each his own, because you'll have your own goals, you have your own desires, so you need to come up with something that works for you. Something that works for me doesn't necessarily mean it should work for you as well. So he says that stop playing with your portfolio just because you saw somebody uh, suggest something or do something, which is not really reasonable for you. So if it's not reasonable, just don't go with it. We try to ape others' decisions and their portfolios, and it just doesn't really work well in the long term. And he says that no matter your income, like whatever your income that you're earning right now, your savings should be high in order for you to accumulate wealth. He says that wealth is just the accumulated leftovers after you spend what you take in. And since you can build wealth without a high income, but have no chance of building wealth without a high savings rate. So, savings are more important than the money that you're earning. Past a certain level of income, he says, what you need is just what sits below your ego. And the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't to raise your income, it's to raise your humility. And he says, he defines savings as the gap between your ego and your income, which is an interesting take, I should say. People with enduring personal finance success, not necessarily with those high incomes, tend to have a propensity to not give a damn about what others think about them. So people's ability to save is more in their control than they might think. And you definitely don't need a specific reason to save. Just keep saving. Savings without a spending goal gives you options and flexibility, the ability to wait and the opportunity to pounce. It gives you time to think. It lets you change course on your own terms. Every bit of savings is like taking a point in the future that would have been owned by someone else and giving it back to yourself. That flexibility and control over your time is an unseen return on wealth. So, and he gives really good examples, like you don't when you don't have control over your time, you're forced to accept whatever bad luck is thrown your way. But if you have flexibility, you have the time to wait for no-brainer opportunities to fall in your lap. That's great. The hidden return on savings is that you need not really pounce or need not really take up a job that is not aligned with your interest just because you have to pay your bills. And he says that in a world where intelligence is hyper competitive and many previous technical skills have become automated. Competitive advantages tilt toward nuanced and soft skills like communication, empathy, and perhaps most of all, flexibility. I think reading this book, I've realized that okay, I need to really get serious about my financial decisions as well. And I suggest everybody to read this book because financial wealth, I mean, health and wealth are very important. So let's do some research. Let's take care of our financial health, not just our physical health, so that we can survive a pandemic or a war or anything. Let's try to be a good investor. I hope you liked this review. Until next time, take care.